The city is breathing normally when the ground suddenly decides it's done pretending to be solid. Glass vibrates before it shatters. Steel groans like an old animal waking up angry. The skyline doesn't fall immediately, it hesitates, just long enough to trap hope inside concrete boxes. Sirens don't exist yet. There's only the sound of everything you trusted betraying you at once. This is not chaos. This is physics collecting its debt. People die in the first minutes not because buildings fall, but because brains freeze. Instinct screams to run, to flee, to outpace the shaking like it's a predator with legs. That instinct is outdated hardware running in a modern death maze. Elevators become coffins, stairwells become guillotines, and streets turn into debris cannons. Panic burns more calories than thinking, and oxygen becomes rare inside fear. The earthquake doesn't kill fast, it lets you help it. The first rule has a brutal name: stay put or die moving. When the shaking starts, distance is your enemy, not your ally. Falling objects accelerate faster than human legs, and walls don't care about your motivation. You don't look for exits, you look for shelter geometry. Corners, load-bearing walls, heavy furniture that redirects force instead of absorbing it. Movement turns you into a target. Stillness turns you into a problem the quake might skip. Then comes the second phase, where the ground lies to you. The shaking feels like it's stopping, like the worst has passed, like this is your moment to escape. That pause is a trap designed by seismic waves, not mercy. Aftershocks hunt confidence, not fear. People stand up exactly when gravity reloads. The city rewards patience and punishes optimism with surgical precision. Here's the uncomfortable science your survival depends on. Earthquakes move energy sideways, not just up and down. Structures fail asymmetrically, meaning the safest spot is rarely the center of anything. Objects fall outward, windows explode laterally, and facades peel off like skin. If you understand vectors, you understand survival. If you don't, the city teaches you violently. As seconds stretch, dust thickens and visibility collapses. Lungs start working harder while the brain demands more oxygen to stay calm. This is where most people make noise instead of decisions. Screaming wastes air. Standing wastes time. Your job is to become small, protected, and forgettable. Survival favors those who look boring to collapsing architecture. When the shaking finally slows, the danger doesn't leave, it changes shape. The city is wounded now, unstable, angry, and full of delayed reactions. What you do next will matter even more than what you just survived. Because earthquakes don't end, they transition. And part 2 is where amateurs disappear. The shaking fades and the city pretends to be alive again. Lights flicker, alarms scream late, and people stand up like the rules just reset. This is the most lethal illusion an earthquake creates. Structures that didn't collapse are now exhausted, cracked, and waiting for permission to fail. The silence between tremors is not safety, it's a loading screen. Survivors don't celebrate pauses. They prepare for repetition. Your next move is governed by one principle: vertical kills faster than horizontal. Staying inside tall, damaged structures after the main shock is gambling with gravity. Elevators are already dead. Stairwells may be cracked, twisted, or detached from the frame. If you exit, you do it once, deliberately, and you never rush. Hesitation costs less than debris. Speed without information is just panic wearing sneakers. Outside is not freedom. It's a different threat profile. Facades shed like rotten teeth. Glass rains without warning, and power lines crawl across streets like live snakes. The open area you think you need might be directly under a failure zone. The safest places are boring ones: wide intersections, empty lots, spaces with nothing tall left to fall. Drama attracts debris. Emptiness lets you breathe. Your body is now fighting chemistry, not just danger. Adrenaline is flooding your bloodstream, narrowing vision and corrupting judgment. Fine motor skills degrade first, which is why phones get dropped and doors feel impossible. This isn't weakness, it's biology trying to turn you into prey. Slow movements restore control. Deep breaths force oxygen back into the brain. Calm is not emotional. It's chemical. Aftershocks are coming, and they don't need to be strong to kill. A small tremor finishes what the big one started. Cracked beams snap. Half-fallen walls choose a direction. People standing in thresholds get crushed by optimism. Every vibration is treated as real, not symbolic. You assume the structure hates you now because statistically, it does. Communication collapses next. Networks choke, signals fail, and shouting replaces coordination. This is where lone survivors outperform groups. Crowds create noise, blockage, and bad ideas. You observe before you join. You move with intention, not consensus. Survival is not democratic in disasters, it's selective and cruel. By the time dust settles again, the city has shifted into its second phase of danger. Fire, gas leaks, flooding, and human behavior start competing for the kill count. The earthquake opened the door. Everything else is lining up to walk through it. And part 3 is where preparation stops being theoretical. The city now smells wrong. Gas leaks hiss like insects in the walls. Water pours where it shouldn't, and electricity is either gone or looking for a new path through metal and flesh. This is when secondary threats start outperforming the earthquake itself. Fire doesn't shake the ground, it waits for idiots with lighters, switches, or curiosity. You don't test anything. You assume everything is armed. Your third survival rule is simple and offensive. If you can smell it, it can kill you. Gas is heavier than air, and loves basements, subways, and underground garages. Sparks come from places you'd never suspect: phones, static, damaged wiring. You move away from enclosed spaces and never downward unless staying means collapse. The safest air is boring air, far from pipes and pride. Water becomes deceptive next. Broken mains flood streets and buildings, hiding debris, live cables, and open voids. What looks like a shallow pool can be a stairwell to nowhere. Moving water has mass, and mass wins arguments with legs. You never wade unless forced, and you never assume visibility equals safety. Cities lie best when they're half submerged. Now comes the human factor, the least predictable variable. Shock turns some people into helpers and others into predators. Panic spreads faster than information, and rumors kill almost as efficiently as falling concrete. You don't follow crowds. You don't argue. You don't explain. You observe roots, behavior, and intentions. Distance is protection when logic is rare. Your energy is dropping, even if you don't feel tired yet. Stress burns fuel silently, and dehydration accelerates confusion. Small actions matter now: controlled breathing, measured steps, minimal speech. You conserve heat, water, and attention. Heroics are for movies. Survivors look unimpressive and leave early. At this stage, the goal is relocation, not rescue. You move toward known safe zones, not loud ones. Emergency response is delayed, overwhelmed, or blocked by debris. Expecting help too soon is how people weight themselves into danger. Self-extraction beats optimism every time. As night approaches or visibility drops, the city enters its most unforgiving mode. Damage you could see becomes damage you can't. Sounds replace sight, and mistakes become final. Part 4 is where survival stops being about reacting and becomes about staying alive long enough to leave. Darkness finishes what earthquakes start. Power grids die, streetlights vanish, and the city becomes a maze designed by damage instead of planners. Familiar streets lose meaning when landmarks collapse or burn. Every shadow might be debris, every sound might be movement or failure. You don't navigate by memory anymore. You navigate by caution, spacing, and silence. Your final rule is merciless. Stay alive before trying to be safe. Safety is a long-term concept. Survival is immediate. You avoid enclosed ruins, unstable shelters, and emotional decisions. Sleeping inside damaged structures is gambling with aftershocks you won't wake up for. If you rest, you do it briefly, protected, and ready to move. Comfort is the enemy now. Hunger and thirst start whispering, but exposure kills faster. Hypothermia doesn't need cold weather, just exhaustion, wet clothes, and wind through broken buildings. You insulate even badly. Cardboard, fabric, anything that traps air becomes armor. You don't look for perfect solutions. You stack imperfect ones until morning exists again. By now, the city is separating survivors from the rest quietly. The loud are exhausted, the reckless are injured. The hopeful are waiting for help that hasn't arrived. You keep moving because stillness attracts problems, human and structural. Movement with intention keeps you ahead of collapse curves and bad decisions. At first light, damage reveals its true scale. Streets are split, buildings lean like drunk giants, and smoke marks where fire won arguments overnight. This is when evacuation paths matter. You follow low-density routes, avoid bridges unless cleared, and never trust anything that depends on balance. Gravity is still negotiating. If you made it this far, understand something uncomfortable. You didn't survive because you were brave. You survived because you were disciplined, skeptical, and boring. Earthquakes don't respect courage. They punish timing errors and reward restraint. The city tried to kill you with physics. You answered with behavior. And if the ground ever decides to remind you who's in charge again, you'll know this truth already. Survival isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, earlier, and smarter while everyone else is still trying to run.